So you've had a break from client work, maybe you've been on holiday, and you come back and it's your first session with your client since you've been away. How should you handle that? Let's talk about it. Hello, this is James from Therapy Business School. I hope you're doing well wherever you are. I'm an online counsellor, hypnotherapist, life coach, author, podcaster, YouTuber, and this channel is designed to help you work more effectively and more efficiently with your client work. So here's the dynamic. My last video was about what about if you're taking a break from client work, if you're going away, and I'll put something in the corner about that last video if you haven't seen it. So it makes perfect sense that when you return to client work, how should you handle it? Well, there's a few things to consider. You might have been quite pale when you've gone away and you've come back and you're all bronzed and suntanned, and maybe you've been lying on a beach somewhere.
Hold on. There's something different.
So it's going to be physically very obvious that you've been away on holiday. Now, in the last video, I spoke about not really disclosing the detail of where you were going and what you were going to do. For a whole number of reasons, I'll let you watch that video to check that one out. But if you come back and you're visibly tanned, the client's going to be able to see this, and it can be a bit of an elephant in the room. So a client on the first session back might make comment about your tan. Oh, you look really healthy. Oh, you look really tanned. Where have you been on holiday? Look at the colour of you. This kind of thing. Now, this is all very, very normal. It's actually called psychological stroking, right? And what that means is that, let's think of a dynamic. You're walking down the road, you bump into a neighbour who you know, and you say to the neighbour, how are you getting on? What's been going on with you? Have a little bit of a chat. You've just given a psychological stroke. Now, the neighbour should return. For you to feel okay with that situation, the neighbour should return with a question for you. How have you been? Enough about me. What's going on for you? They've returned the psychological stroke. But in therapy, that doesn't really happen. The psychological stroking doesn't really happen. But a client may ask you about yourself and they're given a psychological stroke. You see, now when they do that, inadvertently they're putting the focus on you. Where did you go on holiday? Look at the colour you've got. You look really well, whatever it might be. In that moment, they're asking you questions about yourself. All right? So it's an idea just to be very vague. I would suggest very bland, but without being dismissive. So it could be, yeah, I went away and, I was in the sun for a little bit. But anyway, and then switch it back. But anyway, how's it been for you since our last session? And switch it very, very quickly. Now, I would recommend doing this and practicing this before the situation happens. There's a hypnotherapist I know, and he used to practice his patter with a teddy bear in the corner of the room because he didn't feel very confident about how to say things out loud, and he didn't want to practice it for the first time in the session. So he would get a teddy bear in a chair in a corner of the room and practice these kind of things. Because he was doing hypnotherapy, he would practice his pacing and he would practice some hypnotherapy techniques just so we could hear himself saying it. All right. So if you want to get a teddy bear in the corner of your room to practice this kind of thing, I would encourage you to do so. So if a client says, look at you, what's going on? You look really well, blah, blah, blah. Switch it around very, very quickly. Anyway, let's get back to you. How have things been since our last session? And go quiet. All right. Now, as the session progresses, you might want to explore what particular things have been going on with the client that were raised in the last session you had. So this is where the memory's going to come in, or you're looking at your client notes, and see whether they're still relevant or not. Or an alternative could be you keep your patter as normal, and as soon as anyway, let's get the focus back on you. What would you like to talk about today? Now, that's a line you personally use a lot. What would you like to talk about today? And I'll go quiet. because then I'm not even directing. You see, if I were to say to a client, the last time we spoke you were talking about X, Y and Z, how's that been going? I'm actually directing them to talk about that thing, when really there might want to be another thing. But they may feel, oh, well, James has asked me about this other thing, so I'll talk about what he's asked about as opposed to what I really want to talk about. All right. Now, there might be a lot of splurge from the client. They might want to bring you right up to speed with what's been going on. Now, another thing that can happen is if the client's been working on some coping mechanisms or some techniques that you've been looking to develop, if the client brings it up, they might bring up a scenario and say, you know that thing we were talking about this scenario, and we were talking about how I could stand up for myself and how I could say no if I meant no and if I was thinking no. And well, actually, you know, this thing happened and I did say no and I did stand up for myself. What a fantastic area for you to be able to really congratulate if you want to. Some counsellors are against even congratulating the clients. My style is, if I think a client's done well, I like to say, well done, that sounds great. As opposed to some counsellors who might very, very stoic, nothing leaking at all, you know. But that's not my way. I like to be very collaborative and encouraging as well. So if a client's telling me about a win that they've had, I like to say, that sounds fantastic. What was it like to do that? And I'll go quiet. You know, what feelings were coming up when you were just before you said the word, no, I'm not comfortable with that? What were you thinking inside? And what made you switch from what you normally say to this? What was that like? How did you feel after it? So if this scenario happened again, what do you now feel you could do? Or what do you now know that you didn't know before? You can open all this up, all right? Now, one thing to be aware of, if the client is doing a splurge, you need to be conscious of your time constraints, all right? So make sure you're not going over the time. If the client is really getting into it, remember to remind them, I'm just away, we've got 10 minutes left. So you were saying, and it lets them start getting rid of the extra material to make sure they finish their story to you, all right? So just a short and sweet video this week, because it made sense to do this because I've just come back for myself because I've been away for a month, all right? So I hope you're all doing well. If you like this kind of topic, please remember to do the like, the share and the subscribe. I ask this in every video. The reason I ask it is because it tells YouTube this channel is worth sharing the love. And on that, if you know anyone who might enjoy this channel and you want to share the love with them, feel free to do so. All right. I will see you on the next episode. This is James. This is Therapy Business School. Bye bye.